plenty fans, I know plenty fiends. Bitch, I'm chasing goals, I ain't chasing dreams. A lot of people stuck in a place they never seen. It's a cold world, best friends turn to enemies. People come, people go, a lot of memories. Ain't no second chances, bitch, this ain't Jeopardy. The hug got my back, cause they know I got the recipe.
And we're live. What's up, guys? Welcome to Pillar Talk. Today we have a special guest, right?
Absolutely.
Very special guest, Mr. Bill Morrison.
Hi, guys.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, nice to see you guys. How's it going?
Very good. Let's thank our sponsors real quick. Smoker Society, Little Brown Jug, the Monroe County Reporters, Amaya's Fresh Mexican Grill, 8 Mile Vodka, IWR, Lane's Pizza, and Kennedy Health and Wellness. Thank you very much for all of your support, Coach.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your support.
Absolutely. And just want to give, we were just talking about it just before the show, but want to give some love to Gary and IWR for everything they do in our community, but also just for, when I reached out to Gary, you were somebody who I was very interested to have on the show. And obviously Gary has that kind of that relationship connection, and for Gary to do that, we really appreciate him. So appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, Gary's the man.
Absolutely.
So Bill, for those people watching that have no idea who you are, let's let them in on the secret.
Okay. Well, my name is Bill Morrison, as you've heard. I'm from Michigan. I grew up in Lincoln Park. So those of you that are tuning in locally in the Detroit area, I am one of your own. I met my wife in high school and we moved out to California, and I started a career first doing movie posters. And then I ended up, when The Simpsons started, I started doing a lot of work with Matt Groening on The Simpsons, eventually Futurama, Disenchantment, and also have had forays into other comic ventures, like with the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. So basically, I've been very fortunate in that I've gotten to work with all the characters. When you count Disney, Simpsons, Futurama, the Beatles, and some Warner Brothers stuff, I've gotten to work with all the characters that everybody loves, like all over the world. So I've been very lucky that way. If I travel to another country, they don't have to know who I am. They just know I'm the guy that draws The Simpsons, and I have instant friends. So it's wonderful.
I love it.
Wow. Okay, so how many illustrators goes into one episode, or if that's not the correct term, illustrator, but
You mean how many artists work on an episode?
one episode, yeah.
From what I've heard, because I've worked on Futurama as the art director, and I've worked on the Simpsons TV show a bit. Mostly what I do with the Simpsons is merchandise art, comic books, advertising, mostly the print side of things. But from what I understand, and just from going over to the animation studio where these shows are done, between the US, where they have their base company, both for for any animated show, but specifically The Simpsons, used to be Film Roman, now Fox owns that animation studio, and with Futurama, it's a company called Rough Draft Animation. So they both have offices in the US where they house a lot of artists who work on the shows. But then for to make the shows economical, they also have studios over in Japan, Korea, and they have artists who are American who go and live over there and kind of oversee all the artists who work over there. So from what I understand, there's about 100 artists, give or take, who work on the shows, any given episode. And that goes from, you've got storyboard artists, you've got the layout artists who do the basic animation that then goes overseas, and then over there they do all the in-between stuff. So it's sometimes called pose-to-pose animation. So they'll do like the main pose layouts, and then the artists overseas fill in all the in-between movements. So you've got those people. You've got the character designers, you've got prop designers, you've got background designers, and then you've got all the people that make it pretty, that put in the color, the rendering, lighting effects, all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of people, and people in Detroit will understand this. It's done very much like building a car. It's an assembly line process. So it starts with the writers write the script. Once it's recorded, it goes to the storyboard artist, and then that person basically lays it out almost like a comic book. It's kind of like panel by panel. And then there's the character designers get involved, the prop designers, the layout artists, the people who animate it. So it gets passed along from hand to hand. So if you're like the storyboard artist, you'll work on an episode for a couple of weeks or maybe a month, and then you hand it off, and then you pick up another episode and then do the same thing on that episode. So every episode takes about 6 months to produce.
Wow.
But that's 6 months going through all these different parts of the assembly line.
See, and that's something that the normal, even me,
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Nobody knows how much goes into each little episode. At least 100 people, give or take. That's crazy to think.
Yeah, I mean, you watch it on
don't
TV,
even fathom that.
You don't think about it. It's fun, it's funny, it's exciting, and you don't think about like every for TV animation. It's basically 12 drawings per second, and for TV animation, they shoot each drawing twice, and that's why TV animation looks a little less fluid than like a feature film, like a Disney or a Pixar film. For feature films, it's usually 24 frames per second. I mean, it's 24 frames per second no matter what, but for TV animation, each drawing is shot twice, so you only need 12 drawings for a second of film. And for feature film animation, you need 24 drawings.
For 1 second. That's wild, Coach.
Is that still the same way it kind of works today?
Yeah.
It still kind of operates the
same.
I
mean, that's
going to like streaming and stuff.
Yeah, that's the standard. I mean, a lot's changed in animation because so much of it is done digitally now.
Right.
There's still some hand-drawn animation. The Simpsons is basically hand-drawn. Futurama is basically hand-drawn except for certain things like the spaceship. The Planet Express ship, they have a 3D model of that exists in the computer, and when they need a shot of the ship taking off and then rotating and then zooming off into space, all that they can manipulate it in the computer and get it that way.
So I have a question about the Simpsons, and I have to ask this. I feel like I would do it I feel like I wouldn't be doing the show justice. Do you know the secret behind the Simpsons predictions? You don't even have to tell me what it is, but do you know it? Or do you have any theories?
You remember that old movie, The Time Machine, from back in the 1950s?
I remember seeing it in collections and stuff, but I've not seen it.
Yeah,
I know what movie you're talking about, but I've not.
They basically kept the time machine, so now all the Simpsons writers have access to it.
I love it, man. It's something that I've always been fascinated with and found so funny. Is just some movies and shows, and The Simpsons obviously always comes to everybody's forefront. But
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they did another one just the other day. I can't remember what it was, but I saw it online. They said The Simpsons did it again. Oh, it was I know what it was. It was that weird Willy Wonka experience
oh,
in
okay,
I don't know if it was in Scotland or Australia or whatever, but it was really bad. I don't know
yeah,
if you
yeah.
saw anything about that.
I didn't see it.
And there was an old episode of The Simpsons where there was like this sad Willy Wonka attraction, and it
Somehow they
looks
knew
so
it.
similar. Like if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google it, and
I'm gonna have to look this one up.
yeah, just Google Simpsons Willy Wonka prediction, and it'll come up, and it's amazing.
I love
Yeah.
it, man. So one thing that I kind of wanted to ask, just kind of staying on this topic with art and everything and that, how did the Disney thing come about? What was that phone call like?
Well, when I first came to Hollywood, I got a job at an ad agency that catered to the film industry. So we did mostly advertising for mostly movies, but also did some TV advertising, like the ads that you see in TV Guide. And so that's where I got started. And it was, I was super young and, inexperienced. So I got to work on a lot of really low budget movies. So like a job would come into the studio and they could save money by having me working in house and not have to hire a freelance artist. And because these movies were kind of schlocky and they didn't pay a lot. I mean, the studio I worked for, or the agency I worked for, they did the ad campaign for ET and for Halloween,
Oh, wow.
and This Is Spinal Tap, and all kinds of big movies.
Right.
But they also took on these little jobs, and they would throw those to me. And so I kind of cut my teeth doing posters for teen sex comedies in the 80s and horror movies, low budget horror movies. And then, I did that for about 4 years, and I got an offer. I did a poster that was a foreign film, and it was this kind of beautiful woman talking on a phone, like this airbrush painting of a very close up tight shot. It was for a movie called Choose Me. And it's like a woman with pink fingernails talking on a pink telephone with pink lipstick. And you just see like this much of her face, but really slick, airbrushy, very, very 80s. And it caught the attention of this illustrator who I was a big fan of. And he made me an offer to come and work at his studio. So it was while working for him, doing just general advertising. I wasn't really doing movie poster stuff at first. Just doing ads for, like I did a label for Nestle's Quick, just like a painting of a really luscious looking ice cream sundae. And things like Maxell audio tape and stuff like that. But then Disney called one day, so I didn't take the call. But my boss, came over to me and he said, "Hey, we're going to be doing a poster for Disney," and he knew that I was really into cartoons and comics. So of the couple of artists that worked in his studio, I was the one kind of best suited to do an animated poster. So it fell to me, and it was for Cinderella, for the re-release of Cinderella, and it was like a teaser poster. Actually, I ended up doing two posters for the re-release of the film. One was the teaser poster just had the mice carrying like a satin pillow with the glass slipper on it. So it's all the mice kind of running with the, holding the pillow up, and the slippers on the pillow, and there's like the scarf that's kind of streaming off of it. And Disney really liked it, so they said, "Yeah, do the main poster, and that's the one that had the prince and Cinderella and the castle and all the other characters in it. So I did that, and from that point on, Disney, just liked that look. At the time, it wasn't, what it the look of the posters didn't really match the films that much because the films were still very flat. The color was very flat. It didn't have like the gradated, realistic tones that 3D animated films have today. So, if you can imagine like the way Cinderella looked on film, and then seeing this poster where everything's rendered and there's light and shadow and it looks more realistic. Disney loved that, and so from that point on, those jobs kept coming into the studio, and they all pretty much fell to me. So I ended up doing the first. I did a bunch of classics, and then the first new feature that I did was for Oliver and Company,
I used to love that movie.
and so that was a pretty big success, but not as big as the next one, which was The Little Mermaid. And so I did the first poster for The Little Mermaid, and I did The Rescuers Down Under, and one for a Roger Rabbit short called Roller Coaster Rabbit. And they did a Mickey Mouse featurette called The Prince and the Pauper, and I did that one.
Okay.
But I also got to do all the not all of them, but the movies that I grew up with as a kid. So I got to do Lady and the Tramp and Peter Pan and The Jungle Book and all those movies that most of which I saw in the theaters when I was a kid.
That's got to be like the most incredible dream come true, man. To see that and then be a part of it,
Oh yeah, especially
amazing.
the Mickey Mouse one. That was a big one for me because
oh man,
getting to paint Mickey and Donald and Goofy and Pluto, in an official poster that's going to be hanging in the lobby of the movie theater when people go to see this movie. That was incredible.
Do you think, just out of curiosity, and we don't have to get super political and waste time on that, but do you think that's why Disney's struggling more today, as they've kind of lost the touch of some of these movies and characters? And I feel like they're kind of, I don't know, man, those classics don't seem to be here as much anymore.
Yeah, well, a while back there was this big debate over when everything was switching from 2D to 3D. Disney bought Pixar, because they were the big competition for them.
Yeah.
And they wanted to be able to, put out films like that. So people were saying, like, when there was one Disney film that came out, I can't even think of the name because it bombed so badly, but it was like a barnyard movie. It was all cows and
might have even been called Barnyard.
Yeah, but anyway, that came out and that was 2D, and then their next movie was a Pixar 3D movie, and everybody said, 2D's dead. Nobody wants to see 2D movies anymore. They only want to see 3D. And I remember my reaction was, no, they want to see movies with good stories.
Right.
Nobody really cares if it's 2D or 3D. What they care about is, if the story's good, they'll get lost in it and they won't even realize they're watching a flat 2D movie. It doesn't make a difference. And I think that's true today. I think they just need better stories,
I would say that stories and characters.
Characters are my favorite.
Depth of characters. Like Disney used to build up characters really, really, really well.
Yeah.
Part of that's what you did. To be honest, part of that was every little detail, every person that put into those movies and those characters. Because even your job is also something that put into those characters too and built them in the stories. But I feel like they need some of that back, man, to recapture some of that magic again. And what's amazing though is like you did all this right in kind of the best time to be in that position, you know, at Disney. Those were like the golden years. All these movies that you were a part of are all amazing classics that we just will
Yeah.
never forget, honestly.
Yeah. And, you know, Disney's gone through highs and lows over the years, and, you know, they'll figure it out. I think the problem with a lot of movie making is they rely too much on market research. And something comes out and it's seen as really hot, and then they want to try to, you know, every other studio wants to try to copy it.
Right.
And, you know, they've got these teams of people that their only job is to find out what they think people want. And a lot of times, you know, that's good information, but I think they lose sight of the story. It's like they try to put so much of, it's like, well, if we only, you know, put all these right ingredients together, these are all things people like, you know. People like peanut butter, and people like hot sauce, and people, you know,
Right.
sometimes
Right.
there are things that don't go together, but they put them all together, and then they put it out, and they don't understand why people don't like it. Well, because it's not, you know, it's not harmonious. The elements aren't working together.
And I will say, like, nowadays, it's people are very, they don't want to wait for that buildup, that
Right.
story. They basically want everything right now, and that includes their storylines, and they want action. They want it now. They like if 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 Lord of the Rings, the first Lord of the Rings came out today, it would have failed, I feel like, because it's so drawn out
Mm.
and slow. But there's that character build up. There's that, you need to know who these characters are, and that's the stuff I love about movies and TV and cartoons like Game of Thrones, right? Their
Mhm.
characters, like, that's the stuff that I love. And a lot of especially the younger kids, they don't have time for all that. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I look at the first Star Wars, and I wonder if kids today watch that, is it too slow for them?
It is.
It wouldn't have
It
been
is.
as popular. I just tested that, Bill. I just watched that, and not to cut you off, but
No.
it's crazy because Roar and I, my daughter and I, just watched that movie, and I think about 25 minutes into it, she was like, "I'm not really into it."
Yep, my kids too.
She was not about it, and it really. I kept trying to convince her, like, give it some time. The series is great. You got to let it build up. But no, it was tough. She didn't care for it much.
Yeah, that's
And so that was like, you know, a real experience in life where it's like, oh man, you're right. I don't know if certain movies would do as well today, and then vice versa. Like, I don't know if certain movies today would do good back then, because I think back then we were looking for what we all just talked about. We were looking for like character buildup. Remember, TV shows used to drop. You know, they drop a season every year or every couple years, and you get one episode every week. Now
yeah.
you get it all the episodes at once, and you can go
Well,
binge watch it. Then you get one in 6 months, you get another season.
some of them
Yeah.
now. Okay, so there's, what was it? The Shogun. They're only dropping an episode a week.
See, that's still good. I like that.
Still
That
on Hulu.
classic. Yep, I
I
like
believe
that.
it's Hulu. Last
Yeah,
year.
I think HBO Max does the same thing. Or
See,
I
I
guess
still I have an appreciation for that. So what are you still drawing today, or are you really living the retired life, or what's things going on in that realm
I
today?
wish. Oh no, I'm still drawing. I'm freelancing now.
Okay.
So I'm actually in the middle of a big Simpsons project for Asia. So I'm creating images that are what they call style guide images. And if you don't know what a style guide is, it's basically like if you had say you had a toy company and you wanted to do Simpsons toys. You would go to Fox, or now Disney, and you would take out a license to be able to use the Simpsons on your product. And you have to get approvals all along the way. So you have to show them how you want to use the characters and etc. But the style guide is like a ready-made collection of drawings that when somebody gets a license for a property, the property holder, this now being Disney, gives the licensee this collection of ready-made images, and they're all pre-approved, and you can use them on your products. Sometimes there's a little governing, because it's like certain images might not be right for certain products. Or sometimes the licensee might want custom design, like I just did for the same division of Disney over in Asia. They wanted a couple of images of Bart and Lisa playing golf, and it was for a golf equipment manufacturer.
Wow.
So those were custom images. But the thing I'm working on now is just a basic style guide for, I think mainly for theme parks over there, but it might go beyond that. And it's basically images that the licensees over in Asia can use to put on their packaging designs, or their, if they're making bed sheets or T-shirts, whatever.
So I'm assuming you started drawing as a kid.
Yes. From what I'm told by my older sister, I started when I was about 3 years old.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So
Man,
here's the
I don't
next
remember
one.
that, but
And how old are you now?
I am now 65.
All right. So in 62 years, what is your favorite character that you've drawn? You can even give me your top three if it's hard.
Like that I've drawn professionally, or
Well, I mean, period for your favorite. That's what
my favorite all-time character is Batman.
Okay.
And I have drawn Batman a couple of times, kind of officially. But mostly I like doing that as a commission. If somebody asks me to do a drawing of Batman as a commission, I love doing that. I don't know, that's a hard question, because I'm a child of pop culture, and I grew up loving all these characters, Bugs Bunny, and all the Warner Brothers stuff. I don't know if you know Tex Avery, but he did a bunch of cartoons for Warner Brothers and then went to MGM, and that's where he did the wolf that goes bonkers over the redheaded showgirl.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they call those two Wolf and Red, and I love drawing them. Oh, I love drawing Roger and Jessica Rabbit. Those are two favorites.
Roger Rabbit was one of my favorite cartoons.
I used to love that cartoon.
Movies.
Yeah,
for sure. So why is Batman so fun to draw, or why is that your favorite?
Batman was kind of my first introduction to comics. I had a cousin who had some Batman comics that I read before I owned any comics myself. So I don't know, I was probably like 5 or 6. And then the Batman TV show came on when I was 7 years old. I had just turned 7. That show came on and just made my head explode.
Old school one, right? The Bam Pow.
Yeah. Adam West, Burt Ward, Julie Newmar, Cesar Romero, Burgess Meredith as the Penguin, all that. It was like every week. And I remember, they did a weird thing. And people who didn't grow up with it might not even realize this, but it was on twice a week. Can you think of a show that's on twice a week? Like before or since? No.
Maybe like Wheel of Fortune or something like that.
Well, yeah, but that's on like 5 nights a week.
Everyday talk shows
but that's
and
it.
stuff,
Yeah.
game shows, but no.
But they did this because the TV show was inspired by the movie serials from the 1940s. So there were 2 Batman movie serials in black and white. And movie serials, for young people that have no idea what I'm talking about, it's not what you eat for breakfast. It's cereal, spelled Serial, as in a sequence. And you would go to a movie theater and you would spend hours like on a Saturday. So you'd see a newsreel, you'd see a cartoon, you would see a short like the Three Stooges. You'd see a couple of features, but before the features, you would see a movie serial. And there would be like, for any given serial, there'd be like 12 to 15 chapters. So each chapter is like maybe, I don't know, between 7 and 10 minutes. And so you'd get this little bit of a story, and then there would be a cliffhanger. Like Robin goes over the edge of a cliff or falls from a building, and you see him plummeting to his death. And then, the chapter ends, and then it says, tune in next week at the theater, come back. Or they wouldn't say tune in, they'd say, come back to this theater next week and, see chapter 7.
Figure out if Batman and Robin get out of
Right. So when they did the TV show in the 60s, they were inspired by that. And they said, let's do that so that we have 2-part episodes every week. So we'll do a half hour. It ends with a cliffhanger, Batman and Robin in a death trap or something. Right. And then the very next night, they would show the second one. And I remember as a kid, like as an adult, I watched this show, and it's actually a comedy. I didn't realize it was a comedy when I was a kid. But back then, I thought it was deadly serious, and when I would get to the end of that first episode of the week and Batman and Robin are in this death trap, I don't know how they're going to get out. If I couldn't watch the next night, and they're, kids, there was no DVR, you couldn't record.
Right.
If you missed it, you missed it. You may never see it again. You might see it in summer reruns. But some shows didn't even do reruns. They would have a replacement show in the summer. So, you're out of luck. So I remember being like the second night of the week. It was Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I remember on a Wednesday night, we went to visit my aunt and uncle in the kind of late afternoon to have dinner. And it's like getting close to 7:00 when Batman comes on. And I got to find out what's going to happen from the night before to Batman and Robin. And I'm telling my parents, come on, we have to go. We got to get home. We got to watch Batman and Robin. Okay. And I remember being like in tears. It's like, I can't believe we're not going to get home in time to see Batman and Robin. I don't know why it didn't occur to me to like turn on my aunt and uncle's TV set and watch it there. But apparently it didn't, but it was that serious, and that that just kind of stuck with me. That was just such a big deal for me as a kid. And I had, we were a family of 6 kids, and so my parents didn't have a ton of money to spend on toys and stuff, but as much as I could, I had Batman bed sheets and Batman underwear and everything.
I was just talking to somebody or maybe 2 or 3 days ago about how I wish I could go back to the early 90s, and I just miss Blockbuster. I miss dial-up internet.
I just told Megan this. We were having lunch yesterday, and I said, the golden age, and I'm not talking politics or nothing, but it really feels like the golden age was the 80s and 90s, maybe early 2000s, but for the reasons you said, it really just feels like that was the golden time, man, right there. Like that was perfect.
Ranch.
Yeah.
the buffet ranch.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I loved it, man.
Until recently, I never would have thought of the 80s as nostalgic. But I'm now at the age where the 80s was, I was in my 20s. Right. So the TV shows, the music, it's super nostalgic for me now. And it does, when I was going through it, I was an adult, and it didn't seem like a great time, but now looking back at it, it's like, wow, that was a really good time.
You know what it was for me, and we're all kind of from Michigan, right? I went to the Henry Ford Museum. I went to Greenfield Village with my daughter on a field trip, and we actually decided after Greenfield Village to go to the Henry Ford. So I bought tickets, went over there. Well,
Yeah.
they have decades by the decades, right? Exhibits, 50s,
Uh-huh.
60s, 70s. And I'm walking through the 80s and 90s, right? And I'm looking at the CD players, the Walkmans with the headphones. And I'm just like, this is glory, man.
You guys, I have
This is so
I have
glorious.
the original Game Boy.
Game Boys.
I had
yeah.
Wow.
the brick. I had a Sega. What was the Sega one? I can't remember the name of it. But
man, such amazing. Even music, right? It's just like music was more. You put together albums and you tried to sell these like long time classic albums, right? You weren't trying to just get the next song out like it kind of
Right.
feels like today, where you're just trying to
Yeah.
get streams, get the next song out. It's just like everything was so, I don't know, invested and put together back in that day. It felt like,
Oh,
yeah, so
God, I
chaotic
remember
and beautiful.
going to record stores. That was so much fun. You know,
Yeah.
just seeing the, before CDs came in about the mid 80s. So before CDs, just seeing those big 12-inch album covers, big images and great artwork. So much of that artwork inspired me as an illustrator. Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool time.
so I know art and music go together very well. So what are some musicians or artists, musical artists that inspire you to get creative?
David Bowie's probably the biggest. I was a big David Bowie fan and still am, but I started listening to Bowie when I was about 13. And I saw my first Bowie show when I was 14.
Nice.
And I emulated him, like when he would change his look, he's well known as a chameleon, like every album he would, have a different look. And I followed him, like every time he changed, I changed, my whole vibe. And Todd Rundgren was another one.
Okay.
Alice Cooper. I like the really theatrical artists, the ones who
Yep.
like, you'd go to their show and they're not just standing up there playing. There's like a visual aspect. I did an art show in Wyandotte. It's been a while now. It's at least probably over 10 years ago. But I called it Detroit Pop because, and I was still living in California, but I had a connection with this gallery in Wyandotte. And I wanted to, I felt like expressing the truth that there were so many great rock and pop artists who came out of Detroit, who like got their start here and then went national.
Yep.
And I felt like that was unsung, like not enough people knew about it. So I was really inspired to do this show. So I called it Detroit Pop, and I did these big kind of pop art paintings of. I did Alice Cooper. I did Susie Quattro. I did Eminem, Kid Rock, Bob Seger, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did a bunch of, and I mean, I didn't even scratch the surface. I'd love to do a second part because there's so many artists that came from this area that I just didn't have time to do. I could do 5 shows just on Motown.
Yeah, that's honestly an awesome event and project right there. To kind of piggyback off of Josh, I'm curious. This just kind of made me think of this question did, but is there anything you do or anywhere you go to kind of get in a creative mindset? Anything any place you kind of go to get there?
I always get really energized when I go to Comic-Con in San Diego. Like I just get inspired by seeing what other people are doing. And that always, I know that every year when I go there, I always come away just feeling inspired and motivated to do something new and exciting. Um, but sometimes it depends on what I'm working on. Like when I was doing I did a comic called Roswell, Little Green Man.
Yep.
And it was about the alien who survives the Roswell UFO crash.
Yeah.
And my wife sings with a swing band. And they used to play at this club in Hollywood called the Derby. And it was this, great little bar. It used to be a Brown Derby restaurant. And, then it became a nightclub that was just catering to swing music. And so they played there every Monday night. They were like the Monday night house band at this place. And the atmosphere was so great for the thing that I was working on, Roswell, because you would walk into this place and you were just kind of like transported back to the 40s. And I would, like, if she was performing, I would show up a couple hours early. There'd be nobody in there yet because nobody's going to get there until, showtime. And, but it would be open and I would just go in, I would order a drink and I would sit there and write, and they usually had music playing over the PA. And it was usually, like 1940s music. So I would just sit there. It's kind of dark. It's quiet. I'm having a drink. I got my little notebook, and that I found that really inspiring. Just to be in that, to be in a place like if I'm writing about something that takes place in the late 40s, to be in a place that feels like that. It's almost like taking a time trip and being able to be in the place that you're writing about.
Makes a lot of sense.
It does. I remember that show. I had that in the notes today, what the inspiration was for that, to talk about that show, because I remember watching that show.
Oh, you're talking about the Roswell TV show?
Yep, I remember that.
That was actually not my show. That show came out, I think, a couple years after I did my comic book.
Okay.
So my comic was called Roswell, Little Green Man. And it was a comedy about this alien who survives the famous crash and then he's stranded on Earth. The TV show was, I think, about a bunch of high school students who are disguised as aliens, but they're from the Roswell crash or something.
Can we get that comic anywhere?
eBay.
eBay. That's eBay's got everything. That's a good point.
I'm actually I'm in the process of doing a crowdfunding to do a hardcover collection of the entire series.
Awesome.
I got all the rights back it was a Bongo comic, and I got all the rights to the material back from Bongo, and so hopefully soon I'll have a crowdfunded project going to collect all the stories into one volume.
So that I did some research. So what's kind of the deal with Bongo Comics? Because you founded it, correct?
Co-founded, yeah.
Co-founded it. Okay. And are you just no longer a part of Bongo Comics?
Well, I in 2012 I stepped down from my position as the creative director, and I was still with Bongo, but I was like I was developing comic reader apps, which are basically, we had two apps. We had a Futurama one and a Simpsons one. So you could download the app, you could use your phone, whatever your device was, and you could download issues and read them on your device. Okay. So I developed the apps that allowed you to do that. And there was a process where, like you swipe and you could see panel by panel, or you could go page by page. And there was like a whole process to, figure that out. So I stepped down from my position to do that. And then while that was happening, Matt Groening started developing Disenchantment. So I started working with him on Disenchantment, and then Mad Magazine made me an offer to take over as editor of the magazine, and I took that job in 2017. So I left Bongo officially in
Okay.
2017, and then Bongo closed its doors in 2018.
Okay.
So I guess they just couldn't go on without me. But
Mad Magazine, though, that's a big deal too. To be on, to be on that, that's a big deal.
it was a big deal for me. I mean, again, talk about childhood dreams.
Right.
I grew up reading Mad Magazine, and
Yeah.
when they offered me that job, I thought my head was going to explode. Um, it was all I could. I was at a lunch with the publisher, and he offered me the job, and you have that little inner 11-year-old that just wants to scream and jump up and down and go crazy, but you're an adult in a public place with a big time comic book executive, and it's like just trying to play it cool.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, so yeah, it was kind of like that. It was like, oh yeah, well, I'll consider that. Thank you. That's a very nice
I used
offer.
to have the Mad Magazine board game.
Oh yeah,
No kidding.
Yeah, it was kind of like Monopoly, it was just a little bit different.
a little more mad.
Yep, yep.
What being in this profession, have you been in a room with just what's kind of some of the people, your favorite people that you've ended up getting to shake hands with or be in a room with?
Well, I always like other creative people. You tend to not. There's always people in Hollywood that you can tell they're kind of phony, and they don't really.
Mm.
I mean, they try to pretend like they understand what it is that you do, or that they like the stuff that you do, and it's always pretty easy to tell when they're just sort of BSing. So um, it's not a lot of fun to be around those people because it's just uncomfortable. I just want to do my job and be creative, and um, I don't want to have somebody blowing smoke up my butt and
Right.
pretending.
So most of those rooms would probably be the other artists, creators,
Yeah,
those people. So
yeah,
that's I've always had that thought, like, and you've heard that. I listen to all types of different podcasts, and one thing that you hear about, like Tom Green, the comedian, right? He left Hollywood and just bought a bunch of farmland, and he
yeah,
said, like, I've never been happier in my whole life, and I realized that, like, that culture is so weird and different that once you get away from it, or if you're able to separate yourself from it, you realize how off it is, and how kind of like people are exactly how you said, how everybody's just kind of fake and phony. And I just listened to that, and it just reminded me, because that's exactly what Tom Green just said on Joe Rogan. But yeah, he was talking about it, and it's like, man, hearing somebody who lived there and is now back in Michigan and has probably sat and met all types of people, that's just kind of what you've heard is, dang, it's a wild place out there.
yeah. I mean, and they're not necessarily terrible people. Sometimes they're just somebody who got a really good job and they want to hang on to it, and
Right.
so they learn how to like talk the talk and walk the walk, and just play the game, and uh, they're just saying what they need to say to get the next paycheck.
To get the job call, right? That's
Yeah.
one thing we don't always think about, but for them to get a call in a lot of positions in this field, right? Like, you have to get that call, and if you're not playing the game, you're not going to get the call,
Right.
or you're not going to get as many calls.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, if they're honest, um, will tell you they have imposter syndrome.
Mm.
I mean, I have it. I think anybody who is in a job that's kind of like something that you dreamed about doing as a kid, or that you never thought you could attain, um, you're gonna, even if you do it really well, there's gonna be that part of you, that voice in your head that's like, man, you really lucked out getting this. You gotta hang on to this gig. So BS your way through it, fake it till you make it, do whatever you have to do to hang on to it. So I think there are a lot of people in Hollywood who are like that. And again, that doesn't mean they're bad people. And then you've got a lot of people who are just genuinely talented, and they're the right person for that job. And those are the people that tend to, you kind of tend to relax around them, because they're not trying to prove anything. It's like they know their job, they know what they're doing, they know what to say, they know what not to say, and you just kind of get like a casual vibe around them. But I've been around so many people who, you don't know why, but there's just this weird energy, you feel on edge, and most of the time I think it's just because they're trying to fake it.
Not bad people, bad culture, just a systematic issue within that kind of that town, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think you have it
find their way out of it and stay away from it. And even certain actors and actresses, like, you can point finger at a handful of people and say, like, they clearly have found a way to not necessarily go Hollywood crazy. Like The Rock, for example. Like, I don't think The Rock's gone completely like Hollywood nuts, right? Like, he seems like a guy that's probably reasonable if you sat down and talked with him. He's probably a decent human being.
I've got some friends who are celebrities, and they're really down to earth. They're I'm friends with Mark Hamill, and I'm friends with, I'm not trying to drop names, but Jane Weedland from the Go-Go's is a really good friend of mine.
Okay. Yeah.
Thomas Lennon, who is the guy that played Lieutenant Dangle on Reno 911.
Yeah, yep.
The guy in the short shorts. He's a great guy.
911 for Halloween one year.
Yeah. He's a really great
Halloween costume ever, man. I went as those guys.
But I don't think it's just Hollywood. I think any corporate business where you've got people at the top who are, trying to hang on to their jobs, but don't really have the confidence to feel comfortable in the job they're in.
Yep.
You're gonna get that same kind of energy, whether it's advertising or the auto industry, or whatever. When you get that corporate, Hollywood. I think Hollywood is riddled with it, but I think it really exists in just corporate America in general, or not just America, the world.
Right. No, I agree. I definitely agree. It's I wish it wasn't that way. I wish we were all kind of, free to kind of work and do, but it is unfortunately kind of turned into that over time. And I feel like I've talked the whole time, man. I've just been asking questions, Josh. I apologize.
No, I've been talking.
Oh man,
But we're getting close to that time. If Coach, you got anything else to say real quick before we?
So just before we go, Bill, if you wanna if you want to make sure you tell everybody when you'll be at Comic-Con here in Monroe, so that any of our local listeners, if they want to come out, meet you, see some of your stuff and whatnot. And if you want to just drop that. And again, I appreciate you. I'll be up there to come meet you for sure. Make sure we stay in touch, man. I really appreciate it. This was an awesome talk tonight.
I will. And I'm just bringing up my schedule right now. I'm actually doing a couple of shows in the Detroit area. So yeah, definitely September 13th through 14th will be Monroe Comic-Con.
Okay, 13th.
And where else? Oh, I'm doing this is one of my favorite shows. I'm doing the Downriver Comic-Con, which is in Lincoln Park, my hometown.
Perfect.
June 8th through 9th. And it actually takes place. This is the main reason I love to do this convention. It takes place in the gymnasium of my old high school.
At Lincoln Park High School?
It's at Lincoln Park High School.
Oh, no joke. Okay. I bet I just went there for volleyball tournaments like 6
Oh.
months ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, then
big
you know
gym,
where
nice
to go.
gym.
Yeah, very nice gym. So it's the gym where I used to have to climb the rope and play dodgeball and all that stuff. Got yelled
awesome.
at by the gym teacher constantly.
How long's it been since you've been back there, out of curiosity?
Well, I've been doing the Downriver Comic Con for a couple of years now. So I did it last year and the year before. Oh no, we didn't have it the year before because of COVID, but so I think I've done it twice now, and this will be my third time.
Nice, very nice. I love that.
I'm doing a show in Clawson, in Dearborn, April 27th. Astronomicon, April 12th through 14th.
Okay.
So I am doing a lot of Michigan shows. I'm doing the Cherry Capital show up in Traverse City in May.
Oh, okay, wow.
May 24th through 26th. I actually wrote out my schedule for the year. So it's what I'm looking at right now. And I've got like the date and then where I'm going to be. And I realized it looks like one of those rock concert tour shirts, like on the back.
Yeah.
On the back of the shirt, they list all the dates and the cities. That's exactly what it looks like.
I love it.
So I've got a big schedule this year, but a lot of them in Michigan, and Monroe Comic Con is one of my very favorites. Gary does such a great job and takes really good care of the guests, and I always look forward to going down to Monroe for that one.
Love that.
Yep, Gary's a great guy. So before we get out of here, give us your handles. How do we get a hold of you? How do we book you for some Comic Cons?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. I have my personal page, but I also have my studio page, which is Bill Morrison Atomic Battery Studios. And Atomic Battery is a reference to, again, the Batman TV show, because that's the atomic battery in the Batcave is what powered the Batmobile.
Yep, that's right.
So it's Atomic Battery Studios, and then on Instagram I am at Atomic Battery.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm gonna give you a follow tonight.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Just appreciate you again, Bill. I'll see you here in Monroe here in a few months, and I'll be in touch with you, and I'll send you the links to the show and everything, but we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Good
time.
talking to you. Have a good evening.
Goodbye.
Brought to you by Brain Jerk. Fuck yeah.